Hey guys, this is John with CheatSheetPros.com. Today we're going to take a look at college football best bets for championship week starting on Friday, December 3rd, 2021. So let's go ahead and get started. Tomorrow we've got, let me pull up all my tools here. So we have our point-wise sheets. I have a little snip of the power rankings. We like to look at common opponents and what their power rankings are. And then we have the college betting cheat sheet for football that's been absolute fire for us. So these games are going to be really close to the lines and the projected algorithm scores. So we have to dig into some extra stats, look at some common opponents and power rankings to determine which side we like. So this first game on Friday, December 3rd, we have Western Kentucky over UTSA. I like Western Kentucky -3 and over 72.5. You can see the PFF model is about 5.5 and our algo's -3, which is right at the Vegas spread. We have a projected score of about 32 to 29. And again, this is just a rough template to take a look at before you dig into the extra stats. Western Kentucky's putting up 519 yards per game, which is second in the land, and number one in passing yards per game at 417.7. Now, UTSA hasn't been bad themselves, putting up the 434, and then both defenses are giving up 412 to 367, and these teams have already played one time. So when we go over here, we're going to take a look at UTSA first. So UTSA, we're taking a look at them. Now, they were on a hot streak here. Now, they did beat Western Kentucky on October 9th of this year by a score of 52 to 46 as a 3-point dog. But in that game, Western Kentucky had 4 turnovers. So this is going to be a big revenger for them. And one thing that jumps out is they scored 98 points in that game and had a ton of first downs. I wrote it in the article at CheatSheetPros.com. So if you just want to see my favorite plays, you can go there. The article's right at the top and I've got them all written out. The video, however, I go over a few additional plays. So first off, this is a revenger for Western Kentucky. And then after that game, UTSA went on to cover 4 straight spreads, beating up on know-nothing teams before they went up against Southern Miss and UAB. Now, Southern Miss has a power ranking. Let's pull it up here and take a look. Southern Miss right here. So they got a power ranking of 20. So not very good. And then UTSA was a -33-point favorite against them and won 27-17. So that was not a very impressive showing. They played UAB, who's much better. They were a 4-point favorite. They won by 3, so that's okay, but they're coming off 2 games where they did not cover the spread. Now, when we go over here, we're going to take a look at Western Kentucky, and you can see they had a game against Michigan State and that game against UTSA are the only 2 games they have not covered against the spread all year. And then you come down here, and they are on a 5-0-1 spread run since those 2 losses. So after losing that game to UTSA, they came out and crushed Old Dominion, covered the spread. They pushed Florida International. They crushed Charlotte. They crushed Middle Tennessee. They crushed Rice, and then they crushed Florida Atlantic, covering the spread. So what jumps out at me is that these teams that should get crushed, UTSA struggled against Southern Miss. Vegas had them pegged about perfect against UAB. They won by 3. Vegas said they'd win by 4, so they got a good feel for them. But then Western Kentucky, they've just been rolling here. So they've been covering all these big spreads without an issue. And you add in the revenge factor, and I like Western Kentucky. So the second game on Friday night is Oregon-Utah. I don't like a side in this game, but I'm going to go ahead and just show you what it looks like in the cheat sheet. So right now, Utah's -2.5 with an over-under of 58. Our PFF model pretty much has Utah -1. We've got Utah -6, so we would lean to the Utah side here. Offensive, defensive, both teams are good. Utah has a slightly better defense, giving up about 50 less yards per game. Our model has a projected 29-25, so we've got it really close to what the actual, oh, you can't even see that. So, we've got it 29-25, so we've got it really close to what the actual Vegas spread is. But I would lean Utah there, but again, not something that I like. I dug into both teams, recent games played, and there wasn't anything that really jumped out at me to give us a side. So moving on to the Saturday games, we have Baylor and Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State -5.5 is the side that we're going to lean. Our PFF model also has it at 5.5, but my algo has it at -7. Now, anytime you get into these games and you're looking at them, it's championship week, so these are going to be good teams that have winning records, so the games are going to be a lot closer. It's not going to be like a typical college football week where we pick on the bad teams, we find the inaccuracies in the spread. So I've got Oklahoma State -7. That's where I would stay away from it. Since I'm getting it at 5.5, I'll probably buy the half point and just go Oklahoma State -5. You can see both teams on offense, 412, 422. They're putting up a ton of offensive yards per game. And then defensive yards per game, Oklahoma State has the much better defense. And they've also played a slightly tougher schedule, giving up only 270 yards per game. And then you can see over here, we've got it about 26-24. So people would say, why do you like Oklahoma State if your model only has them winning by 4? This is one where you got to dig into the numbers and look at it a little bit more and determine what the actual spread should be. Dorito, quit. Hey, stop. Sorry, my dogs are fighting. And then let's go ahead and take a look at some recent games that they've played. So these two have a lot of common opponents because they're in the same division. So we come up here, we take a look at Baylor. And Baylor's been really good. They're covering, 5-1 ATS. They took Kansas State by 10. They thumped Oklahoma. TCU was the game that kind of jumped out at me. They lost by 2 to TCU, so I know it's probably a one-off game. But then when you come down here and you look at Oklahoma State beat TCU recently 63-17, so that kind of jumped out. Then they also played Texas Tech and won 23-0. And look at their ATS run. They didn't cover the first actual game, and then they've covered every game since. So what are they? 8-0, 9-0 ATS since then. So Oklahoma State is on a huge spread run, so I'm going to side with them for right now. They've done better against the common opponents. They're playing at home. They've got the better defense. 5.5 is a chunk of points to lay in a championship game, but I like it, and especially after the scare they had last week against Oklahoma, that's one that they probably better show up for this game. So we got Kent State and Northern Illinois in the next game. I don't particularly have a side that I love in this game, but what jumps out at me is this PFF model is -15.5 for Kent State. My model has it about pick'em, and we've also got a projected 32-31 game, 36-34 game. So either way, a pretty close game. What I do like here is I would lean Kent State -7.5. Hey guys, stop. And then, so I would lean Kent State minus the 3.5, but what I really like is the over 74.5. You can see over here we've got this total defensive flag that pops up of 960 combined yards allowed. So whenever it gets over like 900, 950, this little flag pops up on our cheat sheet. Hey, I'm going to beat you guys. Quit fighting. Sorry, we have a 14-pound Shih Tzu and a 71-pound Labradoodle, and they just hammer each other all day. So we get this total defensive flag that pops up. Both offenses really good, really efficient. Both defenses bad. This right here alone makes me love the over. 123rd and 113 in total defense. So that's a ton of defensive yards allowed. And I think these two played. Let me take a look here. Kent State. All right, Kent State. Okay, yeah, so Kent State and Northern Illinois played here on November 3rd, and the score was 52-47. Kent State was also -3.5 and covered it, but that's 99 total points scored, so 74.5. You'll know by about halftime if it's going to get over. So the play I like in this game is over 74.5. They've already met once. They've went over it. Both defenses are bad. They know each other. They should not have any issue scoring points. I wrote up the next game, Utah State, San Diego State. I don't really like a side on it. It was kind of one of those secondary plays for me. So Utah State, San Diego State. San Diego State's -6, and the only reason I wrote this one up is because the PFF and the Algo line, they both have this at well over the Vegas spread. But if you look at the numbers here, I wrote it up in the article. If you want to see it, go take a look at it. We lean San Diego State -6 based on these two. There are some skewed numbers over here, so if you want to see it, go ahead and take a look at the article. I'm going to go on to the next game so this video doesn't run forever. So let's go to the big game, Georgia and Alabama. So right now this line is 6.5. Some places have it 7. I have 3 books. 2 have it at Georgia -7. 1 has it at 6.5. I got it at 6.5, and ESPN is still showing 6.5. So the PFF model has Georgia about 4.5. My model has it at Georgia -9. Sorry, my dogs are driving me nuts. So my algorithm has it at Georgia -9, so I'm going to lay the 6.5 here. Both teams are really good. These are probably the best two teams in the land right now. Some of the things that jump out at me is their played strength of schedule. It says it's ranked about the same, and then Georgia's only allowing 6.9 points per game versus 20.5 for Alabama, and then they're both putting up a bunch of points. So I'm going to take the better defense here in Georgia, who I think really wants to knock off Alabama. They're both extremely efficient on offense at 11.2 and 11.8 YPP. You can see our model. Let me make sure you can see that right here. We have this projected at 29-16 with Georgia winning. So we do have Georgia giving up more points than what they've averaged all year, but again, it's Alabama. So we have them giving up 16, we'll say 17 points, and then Georgia's going to have anywhere from 28 to 31. So I'm going to lay the 6.5 here. This is a game that I'm really excited for, and I think this will be a good matchup. We don't need to really go in and look at the common opponents. They're the two most popular teams in the land, so let's go on and take a look at another game. So one game I want to discuss is Houston and Cincinnati. So I did not write this one up in the article, but this is one that I did want to talk about. So Houston is plus 10.5. Yeah. Cincinnati's minus 10.5. So we've got Cincinnati favored by 7. My algo has Cincinnati favored by 14. So we're under the spread and over the spread. So that kind of tells us, hey, we need to look into this game a little bit more. So we have two good offenses and two good defenses. Cincinnati's played a little bit better schedule, but it's been pretty soft for the most part. When I went back and I looked at these games, one of the things that jumped out, let me find them here, Cincy, UConn, Charlotte, okay. Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, they were on a horrible streak here, and we were riding against them. They lost 4 games against the spread as 23, 28, 29, and 24-point favorites. They won by 7, won by 31-12, won by 8, and then won by more but didn't cover the spread. So they were going downhill. I wasn't a believer in them. But then they kind of shocked me. These last 2 games, they really jumped out, and so they beat SMU 48-14, and then they turn around and beat ECU, and why don't I have it on here? Oh, hang on, let me grab it real quick. I think I pulled up the wrong one. So let's go ahead and open it up. We're going to open it up with our PDF. I'm going to put that little guy back. Okay. Close this. Now let's go back down here to Cincinnati. Okay, here we go. So Cincinnati. So these last 2 games, they really jumped out at me. They had the 4-game losing streak, and then these 2 games here, they crushed SMU 48-14 out of nowhere, and I didn't think that was coming. And last week, they were a 2-touchdown favorite against East Carolina, which I was like, I don't really care at this point. But then they came out and won 35-13, so I don't know if they're starting to play at the right time, but if they get a win here, this is probably going to secure them a top 4 spot. Now, let me see. That game last week, Cincinnati, so that was at ECU. So I want to go back and I want to look at the specific stats. And these are in alphabetical order by the home team. So if you ever go back and you're looking at these. And so we got, let's see, ECU, CD. Okay, Cincinnati, ECU. Here we go. All right, so on this game here, Cincinnati put up 444 yards. They only allowed 282 to East Carolina. But the first downs were pretty close, 20-19, but they were more efficient on offense, putting up a 35-13 score. And then let me see what Houston's done. I know the PFF red line has a ton of money coming in on Houston plus 10.5. I don't really have a side that I like on this. I like championship week because you get a lot of dogs that come out and they're playing their heart out. CGHI. Okay, Houston, here we go. So Houston, they came out and rolled UConn. They really couldn't get up for that game. They beat Memphis. Temple's a nobody. South Florida, not really anything. SMU, they picked them off as a win. So I think this will be a good game. Now, all of my stuff is going to lean over here and say, hey, Cincinnati's going to win this game. But we've seen Cincinnati crap the bed so many times. So I do like the Houston plus 10.5, but it's just not enough for me to bet it at this point. But, you know, come Saturday at 3 o'clock when this game kicks off, I may have a change of heart and throw some money on it. I definitely don't want to lay 10.5 with Cincinnati because Houston's playing really good right now. You can see they've scored 45, 31, 37, 54, 44, 31, 40, 45. So getting 10.5 points with that offense, that's pretty darn good. So I would probably lean the 10.5 here. Let's go ahead and just take a look at the PFF red line and see where the money's at on this game. Now you just got me curious. Da-da. All right, so now we're going to go up here to betting. We're going to go up at PFF green line. Yep, I know. I'm going to take a drink of coffee real quick. So this is the PFF green line, and it tells you the percentage of money, cash, tickets, over, under, all that good stuff on these games. So when we're looking at this one, let's go ahead and scan through here. So Western Kentucky, they've got a ton of cash on Western Kentucky. 87% of the cash, 79% of the tickets. Utah's about 50-50. Kent State, not enough to jump out. Oklahoma State has a slight lean, 68% of cash, 59% of money. San Diego State, slight lean. A lot of it's around 55-60%, which is pretty much kind of a coin flip. Georgia's got a ton of money on them, which a lot of people like them like I do. So 84% of the cash is on Georgia laying the 6.5, 80% of the tickets. Houston, so this is what I was talking about. So Houston has 89% of the cash on the plus 10.5 and 75% of the tickets. So I don't think people are really a believer in Cincinnati right now. So even though my model says, hey, Cincinnati by 14, when you look into the stats, who they've played, the struggling of Cincinnati, I do like Houston here. And let me see if any of these other games. So we don't have any money records showing on these and really not a lot on that one. So that's something I like to go at, just kind of check if I'm on the fence, see where everybody else is at. So let's go ahead and move on, take a look at another game. We have Michigan at Iowa. So Michigan came off of a big win last week against Ohio State, which was unbelievable to watch that game. And so the PFF model has it at 10.1. We'll say 10. I've got it at 10. So I have two models here that are completely separate. They use different data, and they're saying Michigan is favored by 10. Well, the Vegas spread is 10.5. So go figure. That just tells you that the model is doing good. And so when Vegas pegs some of those numbers the same way we do, then that means we're looking at the same stuff. Then when we get something that's drastically different, that's when we can jump in and make a play on it. So here, the one thing that jumps out at me right here is O rank. Let me make sure you can see that. Okay. Yep, so right here, the O rank, 15th versus 121st. You can't back a team that's got the 121st ranked offense in a championship game. Two good defenses. Michigan just shut down Ohio State, which was impossible, so they're not going to have any problem shutting down Iowa, who's ranked at 121, putting up less than 300 offensive yards per game. Our model, we have it at 28-18, 25-15, somewhere in that ballpark. But again, once you look into it, I like Michigan to come out and win this game. Their offense is playing really good right now. Let's go just take a look at them real quick. All right, so, well, they're right here. So Michigan, they've been on a tear. They're 4-0 ATS the last 4 games. They thumped Indiana 29-7. They beat a good Penn State team 21-17. They beat Maryland, which everybody thought Maryland's offense would stay in there. They beat them 59-18. And then Ohio State, they were a 6.5-point dog, and no one gave Michigan, especially Eric, a chance at winning that game. Eric was trying to get a $20 bet in our premium chat group, and he was giving Michigan plus 14 or plus 14.5, but no one took him on it. And then they came out and just thumped it. He thought Ohio State would win, and they did good. 42-23, thumped out Ohio State. They kept one of the top offenses in the nation down to 23 points. That was pretty good. Let me see if they've got the stats on this game. So let's scroll back up in here, and this was at Michigan. So we're going to look at home team M's, Minnesota, Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan. So looking at this game, this is a rough overview. So the yardages were pretty close, 458 to 487. And then the first downs, 23-24. And then the points, 27-42. So if you don't look at the points and you look at first downs, you look at the yardages, these teams were almost identical. So they were really good. Now, Michigan was more efficient. They were able to convert some touchdowns and score some more points and, of course, win the game. But Ohio State is still a really good team, but Michigan is also a really good team. And I don't know who Iowa played last week. Let's take a look at them. I love Iowa's defense, but their offense has just been god-awful. Just putrid. So let's flip down here and find Iowa. So Iowa, okay, ATS, they've not been good. So they have loss, win, loss, win. So they're 2-4 ATS, but 2-1 over the last 3 games. They beat Nebraska, which they were down 21-6. They shouldn't have won that game. That killed me because I really love Nebraska in that. That was one of our hammer plays. And then they beat a decent Illinois team. They did good against Minnesota, but Michigan right now is running hot, so I like laying the points. But again, it's championship week. You know, anything could happen. If someone came up and said, Hayes, I love Iowa plus 10.5, I'm going with it. You know, I wouldn't talk you out of it. That's fine. These are just kind of fun games that we're wrapping the season up with, getting ready to go into bowl games. So we got Pittsburgh, Wake Forest. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. Where'd you go? Oh, misspelled it. Shocker. All right, Pittsburgh, Wake Forest. So this one is Pittsburgh -3, and then an over-under of 71.5, down from 72.5. So PFF has Pittsburgh -10. My algo has it -1. Most of the Twitter chatter I've seen, everybody's leaning Pittsburgh because they have a better defense, but it's not that much better. You're talking about 435 yards per game versus 371. That's not enough for me to completely flip sides. 2 good offenses here, 6 and 7 in offensive yards per game. Mediocre defense in Pittsburgh and a terrible defense in Wake Forest, but you can see Wake Forest has also played a tougher schedule. Combined, these teams are putting up over 80 points per game and then allowing about 55 points per game. So I don't lean on a side here. I tried to write this up for Pittsburgh, but the more I reached into it and researched it and looked at it, I liked Wake Forest. And so it was so close on both sides that I kind of just said, I'm going to stay away and just go with the over. The over's down. It opened at 72.5. It's down to 71.5. So I like that to go over. And let me see. I can't remember if these teams have played or not. So Wake Forest here. So we're going Wake and Pittsburgh. Okay, so they have not played. But what I like about Wake Forest is they've put up 41, 27, 45, 55, 45, 70, 40 points over recent games. The one game where they only had 27, that was against Clemson, which is a ridiculous defense this year. But they've also given up. They gave up 48 points in that game to Clemson, who did not have a very good offense at the time. And then they gave up 42, 58, 56. We're going to skip this little 7 on Duke. They just couldn't do anything. So I think this game could be a back-and-forth shootout. I like leaning the over in this one. And then I think that's all the games that we got. So just to recap, our best bets that we like are Western Kentucky -3, over 72.5. I don't have a side in the Oregon-Utah game, although I do lean Utah a little bit. Going with Oklahoma State, laying the points. I lean Kent State, but not going to bet it. I'm going to take the over 74.5. Utah, San Diego State, don't have a side, but I lean San Diego State. Appalachian State, I wrote up in the article. I lean Appalachian State here. Georgia, laying the points. Houston, Cincinnati, I'm going to take the points with Houston. I'm going to take the 10.5 here. Like it, don't love it. Michigan, Iowa, I'm going to lay the points with Michigan. Iowa very well could stay in this game, but I think Michigan's so hot right now, you got to lay the points. Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, I lean Wake Forest, which I wanted to lean Pittsburgh. That's where the majority of the money is going, is up here on Pittsburgh. But the more I looked at it, I like Wake. But I think the best play right here is this over 71.5. And then the USC, California, I don't really have a side on it. These teams are really close, and I typically don't bet the Pac-12 very much, so don't have a lean on that. But that's what I like for college football, and I apologize for not getting a video out last week. I can't remember if I said this earlier or not, but my 12-year-old cousin contracted COVID. Long story short, went to urgent care, then got admitted to the hospital. Within hours was in the ICU for 2 days. That's where they spent Thanksgiving night, and then eventually got better, went back to a normal hotel room, and then a day and a half later got released and got to come home. So he's doing good, but last week with all that going on and the holiday, I didn't get a chance to do any YouTube videos, so I do apologize, but we will do our best to get back on track. Thank you guys, and good luck.